Hey, good morning. Welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about forecasting. Forecasting is critical in business, extremely critical in business. It's the start point for most planning processes. It involves pretty much every aspect of business. Marketing is involved. Business analytics, you folks are involved. Supply chain, you're involved. Production, operations management, they're involved. Inventory management, we'll talk about later, it's involved. All these topics are related to forecasting. We've already looked at product design. We said in product design, I had the break-even point. Need a forecast in order to make an educated decision about the break-even point. We looked at the point of indifference. Need an educated decision, and to do that, I need a forecast. So the forecast is critical. It plays into product design. I need to forecast what I think the customer is going to need. It plays into capacity. How much do I think I need in the future, not just today? It plays into process design. I got to forecast the process to make how many I think I need. So it cuts across multiple aspects of business. My goal today is not to make you a forecasting expert. What I want to do is expose you to forecasting techniques, a few, and the foundations of forecasting in order to give you a better understanding of how it plays into pretty much every aspect of business. So let's get started here. Sales forecast. Some of y'all may be in the professional sales program. Great program. Traditionally, historically, habitually, we reward the wrong behavior in sales. Why do I say that? Because I grew up the son of a pharmaceutical salesman. And I noticed that every quarter, every year, my dad and the 13 folks that worked for him in the region got a bonus for exceeding forecast. Now I grew up thinking my dad and his salespeople must be the greatest salespeople in the world because they're always getting a bonus. Then I started studying business. I talked to my dad about it, and he started laughing. I said, son, it's simple. We knew we could sell here, so we forecasted down here. Because we knew they gave us a bonus for exceeding forecast. Well, if you're a salesperson, that's great. You're going to get a bonus every time because you're in a sandbag. That's wonderful. Except the problem there from a holistic business perspective is the production forecast is based upon that sales forecast. If the sales forecast is sandbagged or is too low, my production is going to be too low. I'm going to find myself always behind the power curve. My inventory, both finished goods and raw materials, is based upon that production forecast, based upon the sales forecast. And if the sales forecast is wrong, all the other forecasts are going to be wrong as well. My forecast for the future, capacity, facilities, how much do I need? Based upon the production and the sales forecast. How many people do I need to work these facilities? Also based upon the production forecast, based upon the sales forecast. So again, if those are wrong, my other forecasts are going to be wrong as well. I got to forecast profits. Now, first quick thought would be, well, we sold more stuff than we forecasted, so we made more money. Not necessarily. Because I may find myself behind the power curve and always having to expedite the shipments to my customers at a higher price, pay overtime to my workers at a higher price. I may find myself with more sales, but less money, less profit. Before I talk about forecasting products, we looked at the point of indifference in the break-even analysis, require a good forecast in order to make a decision. So that leads us into what I call my principles of forecasting based upon my careers, my experiences. First one, forecasts are usually wrong. How come? Why are they usually wrong? Because I'm trying to predict the future. I don't have a crystal ball that tells me exactly what's going to happen in the future. I'm trying to predict the future. Forecasts are usually wrong. Every good forecast should have a margin of error. Now, between now and the election, we're going to be inundated with all kinds of polls. Candidate A, 44% of the vote. Candidate B, 42% of the vote. Down in the corner, it says margin of error, plus or minus 5%. In other words, they have no clue who's going to win. But that margin of error, maybe during your stats courses, you discuss confidence intervals. It's the same thing. A 95% confidence interval has a 5% margin of error, correct? So what it does is gives me a little more confidence in the validity of that forecast. It also establishes my upper and lower control limits, what I'm willing to accept as a forecasting error. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Forecast should be, not always, but should be more accurate for product families than for individual items. What do I mean by that? My shirt here. Okay? I'm making shirts this year. I'm forecasting my shirts I got to make this year. My forecast for how many shirts I need to make this year should be more accurate than how many large black and orange flowered shirts I need to make this year. And the forecast should be more accurate the closer I am to the period that I'm forecasting. The forecast for tomorrow's weather should be more accurate than the forecast for next week's weather. The forecast of what I need to make this week in my production should be more accurate than the forecast of what I need to make this week, same week, next year. Because I should have more information. My data analytics folks should be converting that data into information so I can make a more accurate forecast. The forecast for the weather should be more accurate the closer I am to the period I'm forecasting. The beauty of forecasting is there's lots of models out there. We're going to look at several today. With each of these models, you can do what-if analysis. You can take spreadsheets and play games. If I change this factor, if I change the number of periods, if I change these weights, will it give me a more accurate forecast? Here's some examples I think of maybe using the wrong forecasting model. So 10, 11 years ago now, you had the bombing at the Boston Marathon. Every major sporting arena in the world went to the use of plastic bags. No more backpacks, no more purses. Didn't want any bombs coming into the stadiums. Chiefs did the same thing. Chiefs sent out a note to all the season ticket holders. Effective first preseason game. We'll have these bags for you. Beautiful bags. Chiefs logo on both sides. Nice molded, sewn in, molded in handle. Nice bag. Makes great shopping bags here in Lawrence. Now we can't use plastic bags in the grocery stores. They didn't forecast the demand for these things. You were able to get one bag for each seat you had season tickets for. We had two. First preseason game, showed up early, we got ours. They ran out. Second preseason game, ran out again. This isn't even for the average fan. This is just for the season ticket holders. It was the second regular season of the game before they had enough of these plastic bags to meet the needs of the season ticket holders and have some to sell to the average fan. Overstock.com now call themselves Bed Bath & Beyond. I'm not sure why you would take the name of a bankrupt company, but they did. They've made an entire career, entire industry out of somebody's forecasting mistakes. Somebody forecasted too much. They bought it pennies on the dollar. They sell it to us. We get a good price. They make a profit. Original owner, excuse me, gets rid of their excess inventory. Everybody wins. Big Lots has done the same thing from a box store perspective. I think a lot of going out of business sales is a forecasting error. Somebody either didn't forecast the right cash flow, the right products, the right customer, the right location, the right price, right products. Go out of business. Nobody could have predicted the panic buying that took place during the 2020, during the initial months of COVID. But because of that, nobody could predict the recovery either. For example, Scott's Fertilizer right now has 3 years of inventory on the shelf because apparently in 2020, when everybody's working from home, they're actually working on their homes more. And they were doing yard work and lawn work, and they bought a lot more fertilizer and grass seed. So they ramped up production based upon the sales. Now they have 3 years of inventory on the shelf. Kimberly-Clark ramped up production of toilet paper in 2021 based upon the 2020 sales, only to find out people had been hoarding the toilet paper, so sales went down in 2021, and they had to lay off workers. Now there's one here I got on the right-hand side, this the chicken sandwich from Popeyes. I haven't decided yet. I'm still debating back and forth whether this was a forecasting mistake or one of the greatest marketing coups of all time. They came out with their chicken sandwich, what, 4 or 5 years ago now. Within a couple months, they ran out of chicken sandwiches. McDonald's didn't run out of chicken sandwiches. Wendy's didn't run out. Burger King didn't run out. Chick-fil-A didn't run out. Popeyes ran out of chicken sandwiches. Every Popeye store had this sign on the door. We'll be back soon. And when it finally came back about 6, 8 months later, people were lined up for an hour at a time waiting to get this sandwich. Again, I don't know if this was a marketing coup or a forecasting faux pas. I haven't decided yet. But here's some things I have seen in the forecasting world. Not understanding the market factors. When you think about product design, and I design a new product, but I don't really think about what's important to the customer. Market changes quickly. Can't respond quick enough to changes in the market. Not factoring in one-time cost. When I'm thinking about cash flow, having owned several businesses, I've got to think about all the upfront cost, all the continuing costs, and all the closeout costs. If I don't factor in these one-time costs, it may throw my entire cash flow forecast out the window. Remember we talked about the bullwhip effect during supply chain? The same thing happens in the forecasting world. The better the flow of information, the better the conversion of all that data into information, the better my forecast is going to be. Let me give you some examples. And I realize this first one here, this one's older than all of y'all. This is 27 years old. And we know Boeing's got some issues right now going on with all kinds of problems, not related to forecasting, but related to ethics and quality. But 1997, Boeing wrote off $2.6 billion, just wrote it off. Like it's walking around change. According to the Wall Street Journal, here's what their excuse was. Raw material shortages, internal supplier part shortages. Why am I short internally with parts? Because I didn't communicate within my organization what I needed. Why are my suppliers short? Because I didn't communicate with my suppliers what I needed. Back to that first bullet there. The better the flow of information, the better the forecast is going to be. Let's jump forward about 15 years. 2013, 14, 15 time frame. 787 Dreamliner. Delayed in deliveries. Rationale from Boeing was almost the exact same verbiage. How many times can you use the same excuse and get away with it? Apparently, if you're Boeing, get away with at least twice. Maybe these earlier incidents here were foreshadowing some of the problems they have now. Some of my favorite examples, and again, I know this one's kind of old too. This one's 16 years old now. But in 2008, Coca-Cola was the new official sponsor of the Daytona 500, the official soft drink of Daytona 500. 250,000 of my closest friends and I gathered in Daytona for the running of the 50th anniversary running of the Daytona 500. Now, let me back up, kind of set the stage here for you. In 2006, I was there. Every good redneck goes there once. I've been there multiple times because I'm a very good redneck. 2006, we were there, 80 degrees on Saturday morning, the day before the race. Beautiful day. Went to lunch. Storm front passes through while we were at lunch. Went from 80 degrees to about 50 degrees. Boom. Within 2 hours. Went from t-shirt and shorts to trying to find sweatpants and hoodies and gloves and hats to keep the family warm. Unusual weather for Florida. Same kind of weather pattern in 2007. 2008, when they dropped the green flag at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was 92 degrees. Typical Florida weather. The new official sponsor ran out of soft drinks a quarter of the way through the race. Now, good news was they used the same sales data from 2006, 2007 to forecast coffee consumption. I was good. Had coffee the entire race. Family, they were stuck drinking water because there was no more soft drinks left. Not a good way to start your relationship as the official soft drink and sponsor. Empty shelves, I think, is a great example. In most cases, I think the empty shelves are there as a result of somebody's forecasting mistake. Either the supplier or the customer or somebody in between. Now, this is 2020 in Florida, right after the world stopped turning. I was down there watching spring training baseball. This was Publix. You can see, or it should be Walmart. You can see the entire water aisle here pretty much empty. Panic buying. Went to Publix in Florida, toilet paper, panic buying. Empty shelves. Got back to Lawrence, the bread aisle was empty. How much bread can you stick in your freezer? I'm not sure why people were panicking over bread, but the bread aisle was empty. Nobody could have forecasted this issue. Now, this is before COVID. This is not a COVID issue. This is before COVID. This is the Price Chopper up in Leavenworth. You can tell by the prices there that it was a while back. Breakfast cereal is a low margin item. And you got this huge area here that's empty because somebody didn't forecast right. I love this one. This is the commissary at Fort Leavenworth. The Army's equivalent, the military's equivalent of a grocery store. This is always the excuse. The distributor's out. Why is the distributor out? I mean, this is canned spinach. Nobody cares whether it's in stock or not. Let's be honest. Very few people eat canned spinach. Why is the distributor out? Because of lack of communications. The commissary system didn't tell the distributor they needed it. There's not a shortage of spinach. Popeye spinach is there, next aisle over. Get back here. This was actually right here in town. What was supposed to be right there in that shelf where it says supply issues. I love that. I love that term. Because I get so tired of hearing about supply chain issues. Buy now because supply chain issues, it may not last. I go in the store. What was supposed to be right here was a product that my wife had on the shopping list I was supposed to pick up. I get there and it says supply issues. I'm a supply guy. I got that. Ask staff for more information. About the time I'm standing there scratching my head trying to figure out what's going on, Bubba walks by and he's got Ralph, assistant manager. Excuse me, Ralph. Bubba. What's the deal here? He goes, I don't know. I had a pen in my pocket. I just come from class. I pulled the pen out and I scratched through, asked staff for more information. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, I'm a supply guy. It says ask staff. There's only one person in the staff that's higher than assistant manager, assistant manager. And I figure if you don't know, she doesn't know either. So I have enough frustrations in life. I just need to know, did they quit making it? Is it out of stock because you forgot to buy some? Are they redoing the formula for this particular product? He goes, I don't know. I said, well, that's why I scratched out ask staff, because the staff doesn't know. Went 3 blocks up the road to another store and they had a buttload of it. So apparently it wasn't a supply issue, it was a forecasting issue. And I saw this just recently at a store. I thought this was just great. Look at this. Distributor out due to COVID-19. Apparently the entire distributor's got COVID-19. The entire distributor. Go figure. Folks, we're 4 years past COVID. It's time to quit blaming all of our issues in business on COVID. That train has left the station already. I need to record the data in the same way I'm going to use it. In other words, if I am forecasting daily demand and daily production, I need to capture daily demand data. If I'm forecasting hourly usage, I need to capture hourly usage. Can't take the day and say, well, we're open 12 hours, so just take the sales and divide by 12, because it may not give me the right numbers. If there's some kind of circumstance, unusual situation going on, back to my example of Daytona 500, funky weather in 2006, 2007, I need to record that to make sure that I don't make a mistake in next year's forecasting. But I take that in consideration. Maybe, remember we talked about product design, we talked about segmenting the market. Maybe I need to have different databases for different parts of the market. Instead of having just one big, huge forecast for everybody, maybe I need to have a Midwest forecast and a Southeast forecast and a Northeast forecast and a Southwest forecast and a Northwest forecast. When I think about forecasting and its relationship to other topics this semester, we're looking at inventory carrying costs when we talk about inventory here toward the end of the semester. The cost of keeping on the shelf. The more inventory I've got, the greater my costs are. If I have too much, so I forecasted here, but sold down here, now I've got too much inventory. I may have so much inventory that it becomes obsolete, goes out of date. Or if I forecast here, but sell up here, now I may not have enough inventory. Got to expedite everything. Maybe I end up taking suboptimal quality components to try to make quality products. You can't make quality products with sub-quality materials. So as I said before, I'm just trying to predict the future. What do we need in the future? When do we need it? And where do we need it? I'm looking at demand behavior over time, with the thought process that history kind of repeats itself. This qualitative, subjective. Based upon my experience, I think we need to have this much this month to cover the demand pattern. It's quantitative. Mathematical formulas. We're looking at some formulas here today. I need to think about forecasting and strategic development. Product demand. New products, new technologies, new facilities. You think about quality. I got to make sure I'm meeting the customer's needs with quality products. I want to make sure I've forecasted properly so I don't have empty shelves. I don't have supply chain shortages. I've got an uninterrupted flow of product to the customer. I got short term, medium range, long range. What do I need this month, this week, this quarter? What do I need 2, 3, 4 years in the future? This forecasting ties to products, facilities, capacity. We got trend lines. Nice trend line, hopefully a nice upward trend line. My product over time, more demand for the product. But we know from marketing, or you'll know from marketing soon, that at some point in time, I kind of hit a mature market, kind of flatlines. Maybe hit a declining market. I need to know where I'm at in the trend line. Do I need to massage the forecast based upon the change in the trend? Business cycles. I have nice business cycles all the time, up and down cycles. I need to know where I'm at in the business cycle. Am I in a recession, in a trough, coming out of the recession, expanding? Where am I at? That's going to impact my forecast. I have seasonal patterns. Maybe I sell more of a product in certain seasons. This is the one that drives forecasters crazy. Random movements. Can't pinpoint exactly what caused the problem. We had time series methods. We'll look at some of those today. Regression, we're not going to look at regression and causal modeling. Hopefully you get regression analysis in your BSAN 202 course or your stats course. Qualitative, management judgment, opinion, expertise based upon being in the field for a long time. One of the qualitative methods out there is called the Delphi method. It uses a panel of experts, and I use that term loosely because I've been on a couple of them. It turns out we weren't the experts we thought we were when we did this Delphi method. We're going to look at simple moving average, weighted moving average, and exponential smoothing today. Again, we're not getting to regression analysis. That's more of a stats topic for your stats course. Built into these models we're looking at today, we're assuming that the patterns will repeat themselves. Not always a valid assumption, but it's built into the techniques. And then the fourth technique we're going to look at today is called the naive forecast. The naive forecast simply says, whatever happened last period will happen this period. Down where my father-in-law lives, out in the middle of nowhere. Little country store down there. Talked to them one time. They're like, Joe, I sold 10 of these last month. I sold 10 of these the previous month. In fact, I sold 10 of these every month that I've been in business. I'm going to sell 10 next month. Don't need to have any kind of great fancy statistical formula to get there. Whatever happened last period is going to happen this period. And in some cases, that works very well. So the first technique outside of naive is simple moving average. We're taking the number of the demands for the number of periods we're looking at, we're adding them together and dividing by the number of periods. Now then, critical. Every calculation in forecasting, I've got to round to a whole number. I can't sell part of an item. I've got a half a cup of coffee here, but I can't sell you a half a cup of coffee. I either sell you a full cup or I sell you nothing. So I've got to round to a whole number. So here's an example. If I want to do a 3-month moving average, and there's not a one size fits all. Investors Business Daily has a 210-day moving average of the stock market to predict the next day's close. So we're going to look at a 3-month moving average here. I'm looking at a 3-month moving average. Another critical piece of forecasting, always using previous period data. So to forecast April, I don't need April's data. What I need for April is the 3 previous months, or 3-month moving average. So I need January, February, March. I'm going to add January, February, March together, divide by 3. That's going to give me the forecast for April. The moving piece is when I move to June, now my 3 previous months are April, March, and February. When I move to May, when I move to June, now I've got March, April, May is my 3 previous months. So the months just keep moving down. Always using previous periods data. So there's my April forecast. Came out 103.33. Got to round to 104. If I did a 5-month moving average, I need 5 months previous data. So the first month I can forecast will be June. Again, all these 0.3s here, got to round them to a whole number. I can't sell 103.3 items. I can't sell 78.3 items. Like I'm round to 79. Always round up. I don't care if it's 78.03, still going to round up to 79. Any decimal whatsoever, forecasting must round it up. Weighted moving average, a little more complicated, but not really. It's not as difficult as people try to make it seem. Most books tell me this: more closely reflect data fluctuations, depending on the weights that I assign. So the weights have to add up to 1. So I'm doing a three-month weighted moving average, January, February, March. I've assigned these weights. I've got somebody in my organization who's doing analysis, trying to come up with the perfect weights. Every company I've dealt with, there's some little Bubba or Bubette playing spreadsheet games, trying to come up with the perfect weights to give the perfect forecast. For y'all's purposes, that'll be me. Now, if you got the slides here, scratch that for me. That subscript, superscript, Greek symbology, it confused me every time I look at it. All that says really in plain everyday English, take the weight times the actual and add them together. So I got 0.27 times 120, 0.33 times 90, 0.4 times 100. I add those together, I get 102.1. Got around to 103. The moving piece is now, when I move to May, my weights stay in the same sequence. The way I'm going to give them to you on the homework, on the exam, on the quiz. I'm doing April, so March is most recent. February 2nd, most recent. January 3rd, most recent. So when I move to May's forecast, April becomes the most recent. March 2nd, most recent. February 3rd, most recent. They stay in the same order. They just keep moving down as I move down a period. Weight times actual, add them together, round to a whole number. The third technique I want to look at today is called exponential smoothing. Again, if you got the slides, scratch that formula out. I'm going to show you a simpler way to do this. This is probably the most, I'm not sure it's most accurate, but it's most widely used technique in business. The accuracy depends on what I assign for the weighting factor. The weighting factor is somewhere between 0 and 1. The closer it is to 0, the more emphasis I'm putting on older data. Closer it is to 1, more emphasis I'm putting on more recent data. So exponential smoothing, a little different. So I'm only using one period at a time. For exponential smoothing, I just need one period's previous data. That being the case, the first period that I can forecast is February. And the first period that I forecast is going to be the naive forecast. Okay, so here's my steps. These same 4 steps here will give you the exact same answer if you use that formula I showed you a while ago. I said it looks confusing. Step 1, first period only. Naive forecast. Naive forecast says whatever happened last period is going to happen this period. I only use the first period. When you look at the homework, the first period is where I tell you to start. Okay. Then I'm through with step 1. Step 2, 3, and 4, I use until I run out of data. Step 2, period 2. I take the smoothing factor, which I will give to you, times the previous period's actual demand. Again, always using previous period's data. Step 3, 1 minus the smoothing factor times the previous period's forecast that you just made. Step 4, add 2 and 3 together, round to a whole number. So let's look at this. Same data we had before. First period I can forecast, it's going to be February. First period only, naive forecast. Whatever happened last period happens this period. Then I start using steps 2, 3, and 4. Step 2, smoothing factor times the previous period's actual demand. Step 3, 1 minus the smoothing factor times the forecast from the previous period. add them together, round if I need to, draw a line, keep you focused. Now I drop down to April. I'm use smoothing factor times the March actual, 1 minus the smoothing factor times the March forecast. Add them together, round up if necessary, draw a line, and move to the next one. So if I move to May, I've got the smoothing factor times the April forecast actual. Step 3, 1 minus the smoothing factor times the April forecast. Add them together, round up, gives me the forecast for May. I do the same thing till I run out of data. Next thing we'll look at then is forecasting accuracy. How accurate is my forecast? Simply, there's lots of ways of doing this. Okay? What I'm trying to find out is, of all these techniques we looked at today, which one gives me the most accurate forecast? Gives me the smallest error. The smaller the error, the more accurate the forecast. Actual minus forecast. So if we look back what we just did with exponential smoothing, my actual in February was 90. My forecast was 120. My error was negative 30. Positive, negative makes no difference. The smaller the number, more accurate the forecast. In March, I sold 100. I forecast 108. April, I sold 75. I forecasted 105. May, I forecasted 93, but I sold 110. I'm trying to find out what's the error. The smaller the error, the more accurate the forecast. Once I've got that, thinking back to that second rule of forecasting, my margin of error that I'm willing to accept, if my error is outside of my tolerance there, outside of my set margin of error, why? Got to do some causative research. What caused that problem to happen? Could be a change in a trend. Had this nice trend line, it just kind of fell off the face of the earth. Could be the appearance of a cycle. We're up here, great sales, great economy. We go into recession. Could be weather changes. Could change the demand for the product. Promotions by us or by the competition. Politics happens. We'll see a lot of that over the next several months playing out. Depending on who wins the next election will also depend on what happens with the stock market, with sales, with foreign sales. So politics can play a piece as well. If forecasts are usually wrong, then why do we forecast? It gives me a start point. These techniques we looked at gives me a way to come up with a more accurate forecast. Massage the forecast based upon what I know. We looked at the 4 principles of forecasting. We looked at naive forecast. Whatever happened last period is going to happen this period. We looked at simple moving average. Add the demand together, divided by the number of periods. Weighted moving average, weight times actual, add them together, round if necessary. And we looked at exponential smoothing. If the 4 steps make sense, there's not a single exponential smoothing problem I can give you that you can solve those 4 steps. And we looked at forecasting error. We looked at actual minus forecast. Take the absolute value. The smaller the number, more accurate the forecast is. Again, folks, I tell you every day, stay focused. We're in the downhill side of this course. Stay focused. Stay engaged. Above all else, stay happy. See you next time.